So Donald Trump yesterday appeared was at an event to honor Navajo war veterans. These are the Code Talkers who who were fluent in Navajo and fluent in English, and then invented an entirely new language to be able to send codes to say things. There was an obit, a Charles Pierce great piece in Esquire, quoting from an obit from a couple years ago of a Navajo Code Talker who died at 93 in 2015. And the codes, so just so you're clear about what these codes were, his code was Japanese enemy machine gun to your right. Take it out, destroy, right? And so you know what they did? They heard that, the Japanese couldn't break that code, and then they took it out and destroyed it and won a battle. That's what these guys did. That's what they did. This guy, the New York Times obit that Charles Pierce was quoting from, was not allowed to vote. When he went to get his identity card that Native Americans in New Mexico were required to carry with them, they had to have identification with them and show identification, told him that he was not a full American citizen. Again, couldn't vote for years. And even though, as he thought to sign up for the Marines, when a recruiter came, he thought, why am I, why would I do this after the way the government has treated my people? And they thought, no, you know what, this might be the last meaningful chance I have to serve my country. So he did. So Donald Trump takes that opportunity to make his Pocahontas joke at an event to honor the Navajo war veterans at the White House. The reaction was pretty much universal. They were dumbfounded that Trump would use this event to take a political jab at Elizabeth Warren. The reason that he's taking these political jabs at Elizabeth Warren is because I think very clearly the White House sees Elizabeth Warren as a threat. And they want to undo her significant contribution to rebounding from the financial crisis, the Consumer Financial Protection Board. That's hers. It's worked. Many people consider it the strongest federal action taken after the financial crisis, as I mentioned before, stronger than Dodd-Frank. And they want to kill her significant piece of legislation. The battle very quickly that has been set up there is the director resigned and he named a career employee there to take over. And Donald Trump, because there was a vacancy at a federal agency or a federal staffing position, named Mick Mulvaney, his budget director. The guy, first of all, the guy has a job, right? So his job would be do nothing, protect nothing. That's what they'll do. So that's in court right now of which guy is going to lead that. So, but anyway, the reaction to that was, I believe, Trump's motivation for making the Pocahontas joke at Elizabeth Warren's. By the way, the joke that has no resonance whatsoever. So here was the reaction around town to that. First of all, from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let's take graphic 8 here. White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders, asked about criticism of Trump's remarks, said a racial slur was certainly not the president's intent. She said, going on here, I think what most people find offensive is Senator Warren lying about her heritage to advance her career. That's not what's happened. That's what that story has been debunked 1,000 times. Meghan McCain, for example, who should really not be carrying the administration's water on anything, she went on The View this morning and said that Senator Warren used her Native American heritage, which she'd been told about all her life, that she used it to get into Harvard Law School. She taught at Harvard Law School. Do you know where Senator Warren went to law school?
Where did she go to law school?
She went to Rutgers, the Newark campus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I'm not trying to make fun of the Rutgers, well, I am a little, the Rutgers Newark campus. No, yeah, but I'm saying.
She's not trying to make fun of Newark, New Jersey, but it sucks there.
Right, but she was going to get in there. And she didn't, by the way, use it there. It was merely listed in her Harvard professorial bio. That's it. She's already at Harvard, right? Success. Can't really succeed anymore. That's it. But of course, Meghan McCain got the information wrong, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders suggesting that what most people find offensive is Warren lying about her heritage. No, what most people find offensive is the president calling Senator Warren Pocahontas, period, and then augmented by the fact that he did it in front of these Navajo Nation war veterans. To continue the story a little bit, ABC got involved in the person of Jonathan Karl, ABC News White House correspondent. He said, why did he, meaning the president, feel the need to say something that is offensive to many people while honoring the Navajo Code Talkers, these genuine American heroes? A couple of things. Put that back up for 1 second. I mean, I got it. I know these guys are out there, and we've seen some great journalism, but it should be offensive to everyone. And it doesn't matter whether it's offensive. What matters is that it's hideous and it's inappropriate and it's unpresidential and it's cruel and it's petty. And of course, by referring to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas, of course that's going to be offensive to these guys. Not that, even the way Jonathan Karl, and I don't mean to single him out, I really don't, but even that has a way of making it seem like, boy, those Navajo Code Talkers, those guys sure are touchy. Like, get over it, fellas.
Right. I feel with stories like that, when people say and write those, you are caught in a very difficult position between the president tearing down every line of formality that's ever been set forth, and then your respect for the kind of way that a journalist who is an ABC News correspondent writes. And it's just, this is how I write it.
I agree. I don't mean to call Jonathan Karl. They're in an impossible situation, but it has the effect of, to me, I read that and I'm like, oh, these, like, toughen up, Navajo Code Talkers, when literally the history has proven they're the toughest Americans.
It's just such a transparent, was like, that's an Indian, she said an Indian thing, I'm gonna do the Indian thing.
And then do this, reach out, put my hand on, like, but I love you, guy.
Am I right? Prop?
Yeah.
It's a window into his mind, and again, his inability to understand the gravity or seriousness of any moment ever. And I think to your point about the statement, it's just stupid, right? So we don't even have to go down the line of the racial slur argument to talk about the inappropriateness of even mentioning it, of even using the moment to insult another senator, right? I think it's just ridiculous, because then we get into the issue with Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying, well, it's not a racial slur, right? We had that argument. We have the argument about what other people find offensive, and now it's a debate about what people find offensive.
Right, that's right. That's really what I use. Everybody says things better than I do. Thank you, Aaron. So now we get a response to Jonathan Karl's tweet from Eric Trump, who is the other son. The irony, says Eric Trump in a tweet, of an ABC reporter, parentheses, whose parent company Disney has profited nearly $500 million on the movie Pocahontas, nailed it, inferring that the name is quote unquote offensive, is truly staggering to me. I saw a tweet today, I can't remember who it was from, and I'm sorry not to give them credit, that it's becoming really hard to tell who the dumbest Trump son is. That the competition between Eric and Donald Jr. is really, really intense. And I think it's gonna go down to the wire.
I think Pocahontas is a bad movie. I tried to rewatch Pocahontas, and like Disney should kind of be ashamed. It was a very like Dances with Wolves era. Native Americans are magic people, and Grandmother Willow can like magically touch you, and now you like speak the same language. It is a paint with all the colors of the wind. It's very touchy-feely, weird mid-90s feel-goodery. But
okay, just bear in mind, I neither agree nor disagree, but it's a reasonable point. But it is from an industry that, for the first 40 years that it was in serious business, in a big profitable money-making business, portrayed just 97% of every Native American as a dangerous warrior looking to slit your throat. So maybe there's a little too much simplification and
but like
overcompensation.
I feel like they've come a long way.
Yes.
That's the thing, is that they are not caught in the same place. There is a video circulating right now of Donald Trump asking why that certain people are given licenses by the government to have Native American gaming casinos. And his quote is, "They don't look like Indians to me."
Right, yeah.
They don't look like Indians to me.
There's video.
And then video of that. And then there's video of this where he's like, you have a feather, they have a feather, we're Native Indians. He hasn't gone anywhere.
That's right. He's stuck in 1940 movies.
And then
And this tweet doesn't make any sense. Like, it's non sequitur. Like, why are we talking about the movie Pocahontas? Because Pocahontas is a real person. Like, why are we talking about the movie Pocahontas? And Pocahontas can be a shitty movie, and this can be a shitty statement. Like, both things can be true.
Yeah.
It's still inappropriate.
Yeah, you know who was called Pocahontas in the movie Pocahontas? Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'll get him with though? The parent company joke.
Yeah.
The corporate structure joke will really get him.
And coming from you, it's like.
I tweeted back at him like, it's all about usage. Like, you can use the word Pocahontas as like the name of a person and as a slur, and like the usage and content is what matters. Like, I could say love trumps hate, and that's not a slur, but I could say you're acting like a real Trump, and that is a slur.
Very nice, that's right.
If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.